So fresh all the way.
Kat's giving me a ride, so I'll probably be there around that time, so, but easy to not go. Did you see that she finally saw the envelope? What did she write down? She finally saw it today.
Okay, we're good to go here.
All right.
Wrong account?
Or just work.
I was on campus.
Cool.
And then were you? So I went back.
Yeah.
And I was like, do I really need to go back over this?
Yes.
All right.
I'd like to call this meeting to order to acknowledge that the local legislative team operates on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Indigenous people. Is there any regrets for this project? I don't always ask that with a question. I'm the one that knows the answer to it. Ask me a question. All right, Director Nakshatra, Director Spiritu, and Director Tariq all sent their regrets, and then Director St. George is technically absent because he didn't send this. Is there any conflicts of interest? No? All right, so we can motion for the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion that the board of directors adopt the agenda as presented? Motion by Director Garcia Shaw, seconded by Vice Chair Michael. Is there any discussion on the matter? All right, we can move into voting. So all those opposed, all those abstaining, and all those in favor. Vote passes 0-0 to 8. Moving on to the adoption of the meeting minutes, just for January 13th, 2025. Yeah, they look good, so thank you. All right, can I get a motion that the board of directors approve the January 13th, 2025 meeting minutes? Motion by Director Solo, seconded by Director LaHeca. Is there any discussion on the matter? All right, we can move into voting. All those opposed, all those abstaining, and all those in favor. And vote passes 0-0 to 8. All right, comments from myself. I really haven't. Thank you for coming. And oh, actually, I did want to ask everyone when you guys want the meeting in Brantford to be. Is there like a certain day? I know that some people.
What time are we meeting?
Yeah, I know some people have class. Like you're in class until what, 6:50? Yeah. Is anyone else in class until 6:50? No. Okay. I don't know, like unless you guys are fine leaving at 7, and then we're not gonna get back until, but then the dawn people have to be back for like before. You know what days are? Like, what if we leave at 6? Get to Brantford for 7. And then, do we have to get dinner from the Belmont, or can we just like order pizza or something?
Yeah, no, you
We
don't
can
have
just
to.
like get pizza, or like in the meeting, and then just have the meeting like around like 7. So, maybe just short meeting probably. Okay, so maybe like February 24th. Just because I don't, that's like right after reading, so I don't think it'll be like a long day. I think it'll be shorter. All right, is that what I'm not looking at? Never mind. Oh, it's Brantford. Yeah, there's a, is there a meeting right there? Oh, there it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that in Brantford. So if people want to wear like business clothes, we can take like a board of directors photo of our Brantford. Okay, so. Yes, so we'll leave orders at 6 then, and then that meeting, or I guess, wait, can everyone leave at 6? Do you guys have class? From your 6. And they like at 5:30? Okay, so like,
Or actually 5:20, so it's not like,
it doesn't.
it's not the
You
end of the
finish at
world.
5:20?
5:20, yeah.
Okay, we'll just say like meet at the offices at 5:45 then. I'll send an email though. Okay, and that's on February 24th. So then our meeting will be at like 7, so it's the same time. All right,
Some messages.
oh yeah, there's chat messages. Oh. Okay, no, February.
I think he's saying, can we do March?
Oh, can we do March? The only, actually, maybe because we're gonna have to have the Brantford like election for the board. So we could do that at March and then be in Brantford and then the candidates could be in person. The other thing I wanted to ask about that was, when are we doing like the chair for like next year, that election? Does that have to, we'll do that in April or is that too late?
It's kind of up for discussion.
Can we do that before we do the Brantford opening?
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that like the first meeting. Okay, that's fine. Okay, March 24th. Is that, that's kind of like late now. Have a thumbs up. Okay,
Well, if you wanna do the Brantford election in Brantford, it's not leaving much time to do the chair election. I think it would be-
I was gonna do it, a different, like an earlier meeting, the chair election.
Well, wouldn't we want the full board team to vote for the chair? I don't know. If it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. If
They
it
also
doesn't,
can sign up for what else it is. So.
that is true.
Unless we do the other meeting in March and have the election then. Is that the 10th? Does March 10th work? Yeah,
Yeah. I'm not sure how it will work. So I'm like, if you're on March 10th, like this. I'm normally selling or something, but I don't know if I'm gonna get it or not, but it's going to be.
oh, of that week, yeah. Oh, okay.
Like, I can let you know. I don't know.
I think we'll put March 10th in for now as like tentative and then. Yeah, I don't know.
The 10th, the 23rd.
Yeah, just so then we can have the election on the 10th and then the chair election on the 24th meeting.
It is Commonwealth Day that day, so just I don't want any
I'm
conflicts.
sorry, yeah, anyone, something that anyone.
You have a pretty dry sense of humor, that was a joke, right?
That wasn't joking.
No, it's a joke, just making sure.
Yes.
But what is it coming well? The month, isn't it? How do you know that? Well, it doesn't mean that much because no one gets a day off, so.
Some people.
Vote on that?
No.
Okay. March 10th. So,
Because technically the meetings are always on both
yeah,
ends.
that's good. All right, that's it for my comments. Ben?
Yeah, apologies in advance, I have to get a melt this week for some reason. But Phil and I, along with Ian and a couple other folks, spent last Friday in Windsor, learning a little bit more about the special purpose vehicle funding arrangement for the possibility of a new stadium. Folks have specific questions, I'm happy to answer it, but we spent 6 hours bonding on a bus and had a wonderful 2-hour meeting while we were there. Windsor's beautiful. I'll leave it at that. Sorry?
I believe in
Oh, yeah. Beautiful bridge right near the campus. But Bill and I are also spending all day tomorrow and Wednesday at a renegotiation retreat for the agreement currently known as the Student Affairs Administrative Agreement. Will probably get renamed, but we don't know to what yet, so we'll keep calling it that for now. That's with our partners at Student Affairs as well as the VP Academics Office. We're also working to finalize a memorandum of understanding with the athletics and recreation team around the facility fee that was established through referendum last year. So just getting some paperwork to that fee to figure out exactly how it's going to be managed going forward. Other than that, Sarah Hudson, our VP Volunteer Operations, and I are prepping to support the president-elect through some initial onboarding stuff and VP hiring, which will kick off really fast after Thursday. And we also met with the Student Affairs Advisory Council, or SAC, last week to review and approve non-tuition fees for the upcoming year. Nothing real to note on that front. The next step for those things are to go to the committee for non-tuition fee protocol, which Gabby sits on as well. And I think that's coming up in a couple of weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Really no shock as we're going through that at the SAC table. Winter's Drag was last week, which you folks might remember when we approved funding for it. It was a great event. I'm now working with our partners in Student Affairs Development to figure out what the future of the Student Union support for that event is going to look like. We've been large monetary funders for the last few years, and if that event's going to continue, we want to try to firm something up a little more long-term rather than figuring it out every year in April or May. We also have some upcoming meetings with the Provost Office and Student Affairs around the university budget for next year. So we had one today and some upcoming ones on Thursday as well. Try to hammer out some details on that front. Continuing work on the Greek Life Memorandum of Understanding with hopes of signing a new agreement by the end of this year. Try to set up the next team with a bit more of a firm document rather than renegotiating it early at term. And then we've also received a final report from our EDI auditors, consultants Bettering, working to finalize a path forward with those folks as we get recommendations on next steps. And then last thing is our team starting to prep the 25-26 budget. So we'll be working on that over the next month and a half or so with the hopes to present it in early April for approval.
So you're on the bus for 6 hours, actually, yeah, 6 hours. So you're
Grand
only in
old time.
Windsor for 2 hours?
We were in Windsor for probably 4 or 5 hours. So we had a 2-hour meeting with their finance team. So their university finance team kind of walked us through their process. And then we spent some time touring the facility that they funded through their SPV model. Beautiful facility. I think you all got some good ideas that came out of it. So we were, really for like 5 hours. Yeah, no, I think we all learned at least one new thing. Leave it at that. Phil learned multiple new things.
All right, does anyone have questions for Ben?
Yeah, can you explain more about the meeting tomorrow and what we're trying to look for, we're trying to get out of it?
Yeah, so the biggest thing right now is the university is asked to kind of reshape the scope of that agreement. So right now it's designed to provide funding from the comprehensive student services fee for student affairs departments. So departments that report directly into the VP Student Affairs. Universities asked us to widen that scope a little bit to all student services, including those that report to the provost office. So we're reworking it to figure out how we can support all the student services on campus, not just student affairs ones. So figuring out what that's going to look like and then what those units' accountability is going to be back to students. So right now, the student affairs departments have really integrated work with us, my team, regularly report back to us, give us up what's going on, include us in their decision making. So if we're widening the funding agreement for non-student affairs departments, we want to make sure that accountability is along the same lines as it is with student affairs right now.
You mentioned investing into a new field. Is this like a brand new field, or are you like renovating one of the ones that you have?
So so whatever's gonna go on at Secret, so entirely fun if that referendum got passed last year. The plans right now are the field as it is was replaced last year, and that probably won't change much, but the actual development of the new complex up there to replace the existing building is largely over.
Sorry, another question about that. When are the locker rooms supposed to happen? Game was that much in the summer?
Yes is the answer.
Yes.
Okay.
Last year, we were still waiting on the lockers, because
Okay.
those are hard to find.
Yeah, they're ordered, yeah.
Yeah, I'm also going to assume that doing that renovation mid-year is probably
Yeah.
overly disruptive to the operations of that facility.
Of course.
So,
Still in progress, it's not been forgotten about.
yes.
That was my question.
They remember about it every time they walk downstairs, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's happening, it's just, everything takes longer than you think.
Right.
Like, for example, doors takes like 4 months to get a door.
Mm.
So it's,
So probably in the summer, like for next.
That's the hope would be this summer, yeah.
So I remember at the start of the year, we had like an MOU with Speak Life. So it's just like, and I'm understanding with like study outcome allowance. So is it, are we having them under out? Because I know that they were.
Yeah, so that agreement kind of keeps them at arm's length from the student union, so they're not official clubs or anything, they're not part of the student union in that official way. Largely, the point of that agreement is to recognize them as communities of students that we represent. The organizations are all, or for the most part, already undergrads, so we want to work with them to support them as best we can without having the official members of the students union from a risk and liability perspective. So right now, the agreement essentially gives them access to book groups on campus for groups that are part of the Greek Life Council. There's some other parts to it as well, but that's kind of the crux of it. The hope that I've talked about with the current president of Greek Life Council is to rework the agreement slightly and set it up to be the more set in stone longer term, as it is right now. The new president of the Students' Union and the new president of the Greek Life Council sit down in May without having lived the year, work it out and hope it works. We've seen a couple bumps in the road with it this year, so our hope is to kind of sit down for the next few months, take the things we've learned over the course of this year and sign an agreement before we leave. So next year's team has something a little more concrete to work with, and then as they learn lessons just as we have, they can revisit at the end of their term to make it that much better. So we're having more informed people renegotiate that agreement rather than people who are coming in super green and trying to guess at what's gonna work.
This might be like kind of irrelevant,
Yeah.
just kind of adding off that, I'm actually a Greek organization president myself, so, this is more of a personal question, I guess.
Yeah.
Before like Greek organizations, like part of the MOU of being able to book rooms, like for the organizations that aren't part of it, like I've seen like, I know like Colin has talked to you about it already, but, how are they able to still kind of be on campus? And because this is kind of just a question I've always
Yeah.
wondered.
So any organization, whether affiliated with Laurier or not, is able to book campus space through the One Card office in Concourse, whatever it might be. If you're not an internal user, so one of our clubs, us or any group we give that status to, so currently kind of Greek Life Council affiliated groups, you're external to that, you can just pay to use Laurier space. So they're external, they might be paying, I have no idea what the Concourse fee would be, it's $50 and they can be there for the day. Part of what I'm hoping to do with the Greek Life Council as we move forward here is try to open up the agreement to every Greek Life org rather than just the Greek Life Council affiliated ones. Just to try to create some equity across the organizations. Like obviously Laurier students are part of non-affiliated orgs as much as they are the affiliated ones with the Greek Life Council. So for us to kind of have that barrier, you have to be affiliated with this group to want to access that stuff feels a little weird to us. We're trying to work out the details of what that's going to look like. But hopefully we'll be able to bring that to you folks at some point before the end of the year, because we're going to sign a multi-year agreement and hope for folks to have eyes on it as well.
Yeah, I had updates that were gonna be a little bit robust and Ben knocked off every single one of them, so I've got nothing other than what was submitted as part of the agenda package.
Alright. Alright, move on to the ownership presentation meeting schedule. So Daniel one goal, since we're the chairs.
Yeah, been a little bit slow, but now that there's a schedule, I think it makes sense, to do other alternating Monday opposite, these meetings at 7 PM. Everybody's free already. I know it's a big committee, so, I think everybody should be able to be there at that time and it should work out now that I'm on.
Yeah.
The weird schedule of last
Yeah,
semester was a
last
little
semester
hard,
was
but
different, yeah.
with a couple people, but,
Yeah.
so I think we should do that and start with next week. Continuing boozing on campus, I think that went well first time. We'll have to figure out, because I know it's from this committee that plays a role in the dinner after the
Mhm.
elections.
Yeah,
So we'll
yeah,
play
we'll
a
do that.
part of that. Briefing, getting talking about what we do, getting the word out there. Yeah, we'll have a good last few months with that.
So we'll just start, like next week, then, like
Yeah.
the third,
I think
will you
that's
guys send out?
good. Yes.
Yeah, I'll be able to. Just here.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be sure. All right, the 2025-2026 board vacancy, so there is still one board spot open in Brantford. So Ian proposed that we reopen nominations, for some time, like a couple weeks or a month or something, and then
Obviously, we set the date for the internal board election, so then we'll get to decide who, is the director for that spot. So we just have to decide when we want to reopen nominations, and we already decided that the election is gonna be on the 24th, for the 10th. So is like 2 weeks too much to reopen them?
You also decide who takes
Actually-
listens.
Yeah, because people are coming back from reading week. So if we wanted to reopen them on like the 24th or something, then that gives 2 weeks. So. That would work. Do you guys have it? Do you think?
The reason why like there aren't that many people like applying for like positions in Brantford is 'cause, like we're here moving while, but there aren't people moving in Brantford.
Yeah, I think so. But also when we went for the involved player, like there were a lot of people that came to our booth and like some that like seemed interested in joining. I think maybe just like, it just got ahead of them, they just didn't know when to, like we were saying hi like in December and stuff.
I
Or-
also did go down to Brentford, the first fully classes, there was a meeting day on the Tuesday and one night, and then on Wednesday, we were down to Brentford, in a couple of different spaces, handing out packages, and donuts down there, so we did the same level of candidate awareness there as well.
Looks good. Honestly, some people might have just missed the deadline, and then it was the second deadline, or they probably just didn't even realize it reopened. So, but yeah, it's not a big deal, so we'll hopefully get that spot filled. Do we have to vote on it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll reopen nominations on February 24th, and then we'll close, I guess, the Sunday before the 10th, like the 9th. Is that fine? Okay. Do I have to say like when I open? Like, I'll just say like between schools.
Yeah, or do you wanna do the, maybe the Friday previous at noon?
The, okay, yeah, to close them,
Yeah.
so the 7th?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that works. Yeah, that's like 2 work weeks, so. All right, so can I get a motion that the board of directors reopen board nominations for Brantford, from February 24th to March 7th, closing on March 7th at noon. And then have the election on our meeting on the 10th. Motion by Director Lahaka, seconded by Director Blumenthal. Is there any discussion on the matter? So, all right, we can move into voting. So all those opposed? All those abstaining? And all those in favor? The vote passes 0-0 to 8. All right, so moving on to the Direct Inspection Committee. So yeah, Director Russillo and Director Rubinoff and I, we all met last week for the 2 policies there. For the one, we just, the wording of it was like kind of weird. There was like one word that seemed unnecessary and the word itself wasn't necessary, which is kind of funny, but it just, we were a little bit confused where it said like unnecessarily expose your organization and like if there was any cases where it would be necessary to expose the organization to liability, so that's why we're kind of like, to just get rid of that word. So I don't know what you guys, if you guys decide about that. I know we put the, like our proposed changes, as like a copy on the election agenda. I think it's like one of the last pages, so. And this one is on page 9. And 10, because it has both copies, and then the second one, the second policy has like more changes to it, this one's just like. Simple changes.
Well, one of the things we wanted to ask is we thought of that, couldn't find anywhere else in the policy manual is when a board member vacates their spot, I haven't met, sorry. Others?
No, just the L2 record.
Oh, sorry, I was.
We still have to, they're separate things, so I think we have to like. Approve them.
I thought that was.
I was just, yeah, I was just getting.
I thought that one was
unnecessary,
that one.
Yeah. so-
I know.
All right, yeah, so I think, I don't know, if it makes sense to you guys, do you think just getting rid of unnecessarily is like fine? I don't, is there like a purpose of it?
To be honest, I think, I'd have to double check, but I think unnecessarily was added. If you see on the bottom there, it says do you know the background to be unnecessary, just rather than just.
So I could take a guess. My guess is that language is in there because inherently almost any action you could take exposes some level of risk to liability, especially if you look at things around human resources. So although we consult with you folks a lot on decisions like that, there are times where we just make an operational decision that carries some level of risk. And it's ultimately my team and I's job to manage that risk and make sure it's not unduly burdensome. But if it gets to a point where we can't expose ourselves to any risk, that almost any action in today's climate carries a level of legal risk. We do our best to minimize that. And when there is a significant risk, that's when it comes to approach for approval. But sometimes it's operationally necessary for us to take on a little bit of that legal risk to get to the best outcome possible for the organization.
Okay,
Okay.
that makes sense, I guess that. It's just funny because you would think like we don't want to be exposed to risk, but you do have to have those like small precautions.
So the difficulty that I have reconciling is the actual top part of that. The president may not allow corporate assets to be unprotected and then unnecessarily, but there are times where we expose the organization to risk necessarily. So for example, in human resources decisions, there's always a risk that they'll come back from and sue. But that's kind of a strategic kind of action that we take. I can't really reconcile the two between the bold and what and item number 3. Talk about EL2F, right?
Yeah. So you don't, what?
I-
So you would keep it how it is then?
I would keep it how it is, yeah,
Okay.
it's not doing any damage.
We were just, I think this was more so just like a question of like why it was there, but you guys are,
It was more of a change where like, we just didn't understand
yeah,
what it meant and didn't want to overcomplicate it. That was the point of the edit.
Yeah.
But that definitely makes sense, what your explanation, so.
It also makes sure that when the president or operations makes a decision, that they've gone through the process of doing all the due diligence to make sure that the risk is worth whatever decision is.
And ideally too, the president's monitoring of EL2F, they should be demonstrating how they're making not unnecessarily exposes. Again, some of this goes hand in hand with robust monitoring and then the board checking the monitoring. It's supposed to be a bit of a conversation.
okay,
Okay.
that's fine then. So I guess, that one will stay how it is. I don't know if we need to like,
Just a motion to approve the report.
Without our changes.
Without any changes.
alright. So can I get a motion that the board approve the EL2F report with no changes? Motion by Director Rubin, seconded by Director Ejon. Is there any discussion on the matter? No? Right, we can go to voting, so all those opposed, all those abstaining, and all those in favor, vote passes 0-8. All right, now moving on to GP2J, and Daniel, you can let that pronounce you want.
Yeah, sorry, I've got ahead of myself before. We thought it was most relevant to this policy, but the situation of where a board member that gets elected and vacates their spot, i.e. happening twice last year. I'm pretty sure, I may be wrong, that we were given an option, we voted on a certain method of how to vote, either a general election with ownership or internally. So we thought maybe it would be a good idea to just write that in and bring that apart into the policy, given that option and that the board chooses what method. And we thought it would be a good place to add it in with this policy, so we added a 4 subcategory there. Want to see if that was if it would duplicate anywhere else, and if that's how we wrote it is how you explained it in his the method of correct method, so.
Yeah,
that's all it
so
was.
it is, it's in the Constitution, so in Article 4, Section 7, it gives the board the power to fill empty spaces on the board, either leaving it vacant or filling it during those different ways that we've used in the past, either calling a by-election or having an election within the board. So The reason why it's not in here is because it's in the Constitution, which is approved through referendum by students. So because it's a kind of weightier option, we took it to referendum so that it could be in our bylaws. So it has that like higher level of authority, which is why it's not specifically outlined in the policy manual as well.
So it would be you're saying because it's so big, you wouldn't want to have it in the policy where something any board can change, but it should be changed by the.
Yeah, that was the determination, and to be able to have elections for vacancies at the board table is only a few years old. That change was taken to the population to add that in. The board previously didn't have that ability. But when it was identified that that was something they wanted to have, that was part of our Ontario Corporations Act suite of changes.
Okay, that makes sense. So
And
that's
similarly with the Board of Governors and Senate, we have a separate MOU with them.
okay.
Basically, they can delegate their authority to us to run elections, so it also is kind of part of that external agreement.
Right. Too big for right here.
Sorry?
Too big of a decision to be right here.
It's more that they just kind of let us do it in that fashion for expediency.
We did look at the other policy just to see if it was there, and it wasn't, so we're like, where is it? So,
Yeah.
so we know it's up there.
And then the other thing is just the quorum, so just like point number 6 or 7 or 5 on that one says like. Make sure that it's just quorum or
Oh, number 5.
5, yeah,
Number 6.
making sure that quorum for the election is met. but,
That's
like,
6 after the edit.
Yeah,
Just
sorry.
5, yeah.
Yeah, 5 and like the actual one, like ensure that quorum for the election is met or is 10%. Is there anywhere where it says like if quorum isn't met, like what happens?
No, mostly because the intention has been to let the board determine what the best option is in the time. So if we get to Thursday and we haven't hit 10%, the most likely recommendation that we would bring to the board would be to keep the voting portal open until we hit that 10%. But there could be a situation where circumstances might be different, but essentially it's kind of intentionally vague to leave the board with as many options as possible because you do have the ability, because this is a board level policy to determine what the best course of action is. So rather than kind of narrowing the options down, you kind of give yourself the ability to be flexible with how you get us across that.
So should we like include that, like if quorum isn't met, then the board decides how the election proceed?
I mean, in my opinion, sure, quorum kind of leaves you with the power to figure out how you get there, without specifying. If you want more clarity, you can certainly add. But as we read it right now, we would essentially, again, if Thursday evening comes and we don't have 10%, we would come let you know that and be like, here are some operational recommendations for what we think, like maybe we're at 9.75% or something like that, because we can tell where we're at, and then we'd be like, we recommend an additional 12 hours. And then
We have to have like an emergency board meeting.
we would if we had that. But technically, the annual meeting is scheduled.
I'm not here Friday, so if the election's not get out on Friday, I won't be
You have to run around campus.
here. I'm gonna do that. Anyway, okay,
All good questions, but the kind of balance we try to strike. Policy manual is maintaining as much flexibility for the board as possible without being kind of overly prescriptive. Finding some kind of balance, but then also not contradicting our other bylaws, which. Or like if you put something in the board policy that contradicted the Constitution. The Constitution reigns.
Right, yeah.
okay.
No, we had these in because we know that they exist and
Yeah.
have acted on it, but we didn't,
For sure.
weren't sure where. Good to ask and to learn more about it, I guess.
No, good.
I would make any changes. I'd
Yeah,
keep
I
it as
think
is.
so. Yeah, after this. I need to see how it is. Does anyone have anything else they wanna add? Alright, so I was gonna motion that the board accept the GP number 2.
J.
J.
Elections in.
Reports, like, I don't even know. Okay, I'll just say this. Okay, can I get a motion that the board accept the GP number 2J, DIC report with no changes? Motion by Director Blunkett, seconded by Director Rubinoff. Is there any discussion on the matter?
All right, we can move into voting. All those opposed? All those abstaining? And all those in favor? Vote passes 0-0 to 8. All right, moving on to the Career Center networking event. Phil, did you reach out to the Career Center?
I didn't reach out to the Career Center, but I did reach out to Devin Kelly, who is a former board member and someone who is professionally in the field of hiring and recruitment. So she's able to kind of coordinate and work with our outgoing transitioning committee, that we have on the operational staff. So we'll be working with those guys to kind of coordinate a day where she can come in and do sessions both with the board and the outgoing teams.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that gonna be like during the day then, or would it be like an evening?
As of right now, unclear, but based on everybody's schedules, probably a bit of A and a bit of B.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, so I guess we're done the main session yet.
We forgot to add this to the agenda, so that's our bad, but I think we wanted to circle back on the health and dental RFP that we talked a little bit about today.
Yep.
I don't know if we need to formally.
You can just motion to add a discussion on
For that.
Yeah, so we can probably give a little update about where the RFP's at and then hopefully get some representatives from the board for that selection committee.
All right. All right.
Yes.
All right, so can I motion that the board add a discussion around the health and dental RFP to the agenda? Motion by Vice Chair Housemeyer, seconded by Director Solo. Any discussion on the matter? No, all right, into voting. All those opposed? All those abstaining? And all those in favor? Vote passes 0-0 to 8. All right.
So-
Yeah.
Feel free to fill in the gaps if I missed stuff here. So the submission deadline for the RFP was last Friday. We got 3 submissions from different companies, including our current provider. So next step is for a committee to evaluate those submissions with the hope of making a decision, but prior to May 1st on the provider for the plan next year or beyond. So as of now, it's settled. Myself, Phil, Kelly, our Director of Member Services, Chris, our Director of Finance, as kind of the operations folks that are gonna be on that committee, with the hope of adding 1 or 2 of my VPs as well to get some more student perspective. Then would like to have probably 2 of you folks on that committee as well, given that any changes to health and dental might have a pretty significant financial impact on the organization. So your input in that process is gonna be important. So we talked a little bit about it last week. If folks have questions, we're happy to answer them. I say we, I probably mean Phil. So you folks can give us some names to kind of send that committee as we go forward. It shouldn't be too much work. So 3 proposals that came in, review those, and then probably meetings with each of the providers.
Yeah, I think when you brought up last week, there was a couple of people that seemed interested in it. So is anyone who want to join that committee? Okay, Director Vidal. All right, so Director Rebecca. Good job. All right, so there's 4. Well, I don't know how many spots do you?
We don't have a firm number in mind. Like from a scheduling perspective, we probably want to keep it to 2 or 3. But Phil, thoughts?
No, that's the number that I had in my head. We wanna kind of keep it as nimble as possible, but a good representation from the board that will be able to kind of support whatever recommendation goes forward for any kind of contract is signed.
Okay, so like 2 or 3, do any of you guys look down?
I'm not. I can step down, I guess.
So do you want to do like the 3? Can we do 3?
Yeah, and it also depends if you want to sit on it.
I can step down as well.
Okay.
I'll bow out.
That's fair enough.
That is actually weird. You guys want to be on it? It's fun. None of that happens.
What's good on a resume?
Yeah.
If that helps.
You want to step out? Director Econ would love to be on it. Okay, I'll step out.
No, if you want to. No. No.
Yeah, the other 2 names are
Cheek.
rock, paper, scissors, 2 months. But how am I going? I'm taking the spot for one of them too. Yeah.
wanna do a lot of stuff.
I heard
I've
you've
talked-
been into this, so yeah,
I've-
you've been into it, you're,
I've been,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's understandable.
I only. Graduate now. Because I'm not missing.
That's in English.
So, yeah.
Okay, so Director Ajum, do you stand? Director Rubinoff, do you stand? Director Lahadi, do you stand? All right, perfect. Okay, so can I get a motion that the Board of Directors approve the nomination of Director Ajum, Director Rubinoff, and Director Lahadi to the Health and Dental Committee? Motion by Director Vice Chair Hatamichael and by Director Garcia Shaw. Any discussion on the matter? All right, we can move into voting. So all those opposed? All those abstaining? And all those in favor? Vote passes 0-0 to 8. All right, now we can move into the in-camera session. I think Ben, you just step up for this.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just the addition of board secretary, right?
Anyways,
Oh, yeah, okay. All right, so can I get a motion that the board of directors move into an in-camera session with the addition of me and the board secretary, motion by Director Lahadi, seconded by Director Bloomberg. Any discussion on the matter? No, we can move into voting, all those opposed, all those abstaining, and all those